Eric and Brian are what I would call humble goats. They're the video team here at Slow Impact. They're also people who have the misfortune of filming me. Yeah, a major round of applause for both Eric and Brian. Okay, this is a random one. You don't even know why these people are being thanked, right? But we've got to thank Skylar and Amber over here in the back for executing a pretty funny joke that will be revealed in an hour or two's time. All right, so that's thank yous for the day. One last bit of housekeeping. I'm also going to come back on afterwards. I know everyone's like trying to rush to the bathroom, but like I just want to talk a little bit about Spot Seekers. Which has been going well. Do you have the clicker? Or do I have the clicker? Yeah, I just wanted to post this because I thought it was hilarious. Yeah, you guys are doing a good job. Please don't get me arrested though. That seems like it might be possible. Yeah, it's pretty awesome to unleash like 200 street skaters all over ASU's campus and have to. Yeah. Okay, and so Ted Barrow, the Eagle, has just landed, I found out. We don't need to thank Ted just yet. He's got all sorts of awesome things. But he's going to be doing his tour. It was originally supposed to be at Taliesin West, which we were really excited about. And then they, last minute, were like, everyone has to pay full price. And we're just like, no, we're not doing that. So Ted and Maurice, and with the help of Ari, we've kind of curated what would we call it, like a skate throughout the ASU campus that checks out some of ASU's architecture, including Frank Lloyd Wright's Grady Gamage. That will be meeting at Old Main at 2 p.m. So if you would like to go to that, Google, or it works on Apple Maps as well, Old Main, which is the old historic building at ASU, show up there at 2 p.m. and he'll be doing a guided skate architecture tour. It should be pretty exciting. I think it's limited attendance, so if 100 people go, he's not gonna have a microphone. It's just gonna be one of those things where 30 or 40 people are able to probably manage. All right, so I guess lastly, we've got Matt Price. Yeah. Matt's a little nervous, but he's gonna do great. He didn't make it to Slow Impact last year, but we forgive him for that. Matt, of course, I've known you my entire life. You've shot photos with me and with all of our friends and chronicled our entire lives. You've shot every horrible hat phase I've ever been through. The hat beanie, the heaney, the Jack Sparrow bandana, the fedora, the pink fedora. Yeah, all of those. So Mother Goose, the Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou beanie. So yeah, you have all my dirtiest photos. No, but Matt is, I say this sincerely. It's cool that we're standing next to each other with all these people. As you know, Matt is probably the best skate photographer on the planet. And beyond that, I think that Matt has invented a new language that has adapted photos for the current internet age. And what I mean by that is, like, a couple years ago, I feel like everyone had this prediction that with Instagram pivoting so much to video that basically like skate photos were dead, and Matt was like, no, fuck you. Skate photos are back, and we're gonna share them all over the place, and they're gonna be awesome and inspire people to go skate and make content and really capture the energy of skateboarding. And of course, as we know, he does that better than anybody. So this is going to be, Matt will probably explain this also, but this is gonna be kind of an interactive type of lecture, slide lecture. He's going to be taking questions. I will be running the microphone. So Matt, you're actually going to be on that mic over there. And I will be running this microphone back and forth. If you have any questions, Matt has, he put out a Q&A on his story, but please just raise your hand at any point. I think it's going to be easier for him to do audience feedback than it is to sit here. Not sit here, he's actually going to stand for the next hour and a half and just talk about his own photos. So please do not feel weird. Throw your hand up at any time.
Say it like that.
So yeah, let's go.
Every time, probably. All right, well, if you think being complimented is hard, get a compliment in front of a room of like 200 people. That's fucking insane. Thanks for coming, everybody. I am Matt Price. We are going to talk about photography today. This is my cool intro slide that I made. It took me a lot of time, so if you guys could appreciate this first. My talk today is called That's the One, because trying to think of a name for this shit is really hard, and I just kind of thought about like what the process of shooting a photo is, and shooting a photo digitally, which is how we shoot photos now, and that's the one is like something that comes out of my mouth all the time. It's like you're waiting with someone, you're waiting for the right thing to come, and you're trying things, and then you have that moment, and you're like, that's the one, we got it. So that's kind of what the title is about. And yeah, I'm going to talk about, I didn't really know what people would want from this, so I kind of did a mix of things. Like some of it will be technical, some of it is just stories, some of it is like ethos and philosophy behind photography, or skate photography specifically, and like kind of things I've learned, or little things that run through my head while I'm shooting, and hopefully it's helpful for people or interesting. And yeah, we'll jump right in. That is me when I was 17 years old, and I have been shooting skate photos since I was 16, and I got a job at the Skateboard Mag when I was 19 years old, which is insane. I was like a child, and I got my dream job, and I did that for about 8 years, and then through that transitioned into some marketing jobs, and I've been working with skating for about 2 decades now. And yeah, that's kind of, I could go more into my story, but that's not what this is about. But yeah, Skateboard Mag was basically where I came up, and I don't know if, some of you might not even know Skateboard Mag. It's funny because it was such a big part of my life, but it hasn't existed now for a few years. So if you're newer to the skate kind of, this whole world, like maybe you don't know what it is. It was started by the guys who started Transworld magazine, and they broke off and started Skateboard Mag in 2003 or 4, I believe. It was like Grant Britton, Atiba Jefferson, Dave Swift. Those are all kind of like my mentors. I was really fortunate to come up in skate photography at like this transitional phase. I started shooting on film, and a few years in switched to digital. Had like these guys as my mentors that were like legendary in skate photography. There was still multiple magazines. We got to get stuff published a lot. I know now there's magazines again, which I love. Like I love that now there's a landscape of skate mags again, because for a few years it was a barren desert. We just had the Bible. All respect to the Bible, but we never you that loud again during my talk, Ted. No, we certainly need more, and I'm glad that we have more now, so that's exciting. I'm gonna jump right in. So this is a photo. I did not take this photo. I wish I took this photo. This is a photo of Jason Lee, shot by Otis Bartholomew, rest in peace. O photo. This is, yeah, let's get a clap for O. Unsung hero of skateboard photography and creativity in skateboarding, and just a legend. Recorded the Blink-182 Cheshire Cat album too. He's like one of those people where everything he did was incredible. But this is my favorite skate photo of all time, which it took me like 20 years of doing this to really hone in on what the best image is for me. I hate saying image. If I say image again, someone yell at me, all right? Picture. But no, I think this is perfect to me. It's perfect for the era. It's 1990. Jason Lee is at the top of his game. The action is perfect. The lighting is perfect. The time of day. His gear is like impeccable. Everything about it is just like wonderful. And I realized it a few years ago when I was just looking at this photo one day, and I just thought, this is just really, to me, in my preference, the best skate photo that exists on planet Earth. And I don't think, you won't be able to make something better because it's a time capsule too, right? Or maybe something that's shot now, 30 years from now, maybe will be better, but I'll let you guys know if I come up with something that I like better. But currently, this is it. When I think of skateboard in my head, skateboard photos, this is it. And the next slide is the obvious progression, which this is my favorite photo that I've shot, which as I put them together, I realized that it makes a lot of sense. And that's the thing about inspiration. Like you're not, shooting this photo, I'm not thinking about this photo, but it's buried in my subconscious. And years later, I'm kind of like looking at them and I'm like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense that this is what I would love. But it took me like 15 years of shooting to get to this and like figure out I wanted to shoot like this. And clearly it's very different. It's definitely more, it's less personalized. You don't even know this. It's Dane Brady, but you wouldn't know who he is. And it kind of was this moment I had where I just really realized I wanted to tell this energy, I call it energy story, because I feel like this is more like journalism, right? If we look at Jay Lee, oh, wrong one. There we go. Like there's a story here, right? You see where he starts, you see where he lands, you can see everything. They're not leaving anything to the imagination, which is part of the perfection of this, because at the time, this was groundbreaking, right? This was like, you needed it to be journalism as well as art, and I think it does the job. Whereas like, fast forward 2016, this doesn't need to be journalism. No one is impressed by someone doing a 1 foot at this point. It's like, I mean, maybe I was actually, and it's impressive, but the story isn't that like, wow, this is some new type of skateboarding we've never seen. The story is just, oh, this makes you feel cool. And a side thing about this, I don't know if you can tell, there's a little circle at the top of his shoe. That's where he was touching the lens. I had like a lens protector on, and the goal of this session was like, I said, kick the lens. Let's try to kick the lens. And that was the moment he made contact, and that's that kind of little bubble there, is him touching the protector outside of the lens. And I thought it would be fun to kind of, this is like, you get to be a fly on the wall of the session. I pulled all the raw files from when we were shooting this, and I'm gonna run through them quickly, because there's a lot. But I wanted to kind of go through the process of how this session went down. These are all raw, unedited. This is like the shit you never want to show anyone. This is like embarrassing, because a lot of Photoshop goes into my photos, so you'll see that this is what they come out of the camera looking like, and it's not nearly as fun. But I was with Emile Laurent and Dane Brady at this spot by my house in Portland, and I had this lens protector, so I was like, let's start kicking the lens. That was my goal. So you kind of just see how we progressed through the session and tried like these different shots, and it was all just like really like we had no idea what we actually wanted. I just knew I wanted a foot on the lens. So Emile was trying tail grab 1 foots. We started getting closer to something we wanted there. That was the first one Dane tried. It was like I was doing it with Emile, and Dane saw it, and he's like, I want to do that. And it kind of became this fun game, like who could kick the lens first. So like I said, there's a protector. You'll see some weird like lines, like you see in this one on the top, that protector was getting scratched and all this stuff. So yeah, we just kind of ran through, and I was like, oh, that's nice, like figuring out what we wanted actually and what we were looking for. We're getting closer here. Some of these are just, that was clearly just a mistake. But this is full disclosure here. You're seeing all of it. This was the first one where I thought, okay, we're getting somewhere. This is something similar to what I want, right? And then we kind of just keep going. That one's really bad. Dane would kill me if he knew this many people were seeing his skate face right now. He is not into this shit, so don't tell him. But yeah, then we got closer to like, and then that was after I got hit in the lens. But then this is also like, oh, I love this. This isn't really a good skate photo because you don't see what's happening, but I was like, okay, the action is getting there. That one I love, but not right. That one's really close. I was like, we're almost there. And then we started getting to this one. Where was the one where it started clicking? That was a really bad one. This was like, okay, this is close to what I want. So I started I got a little higher, did the angle right. That's even closer to what I want, and then fast forward, there it is, right? So we got this one, and I looked at it, and I was excited. I was like, oh, this is it. I think this is it. But you never know if it's it, so you have to shoot a few more. So we did a few more. That was clearly not it. Also not it. And then we, at some point, we just gave up and realized we had it. I think it was after this one. And that's the final image, and that's kind of, hopefully it's not too messy, but that was the process of shooting the photo. It's to show you that, like, most of the photos leading up to the one that's good are bad, or like I think they're bad. They're just not what you want, and if you look at them raw, you're like, these aren't really interesting skate photos. And that one is kind of where the magic point hits, and then obviously you do some editing in post. That's the side-by-side, and yeah, just kind of this like, it's like such a dance with the skaters when you shoot a photo like this, to just kind of like, everyone's on the same page, we know we have the same goal, and I love that, because that's how you make something like this that I was just really excited to. I didn't know if anyone else would be excited about it at the time, because it was kind of like, it's a ridiculous photo, but I don't know, it checks all the boxes for me, and it really just like tells the energy story that I like, and yeah, just a little insight into the process. Does anyone have any questions at this time about this photo or any of this stuff? Yes?
How did the camera handle getting kicked? Because obviously, like, even though you have a hold on. Hey, I shoot photos too and all that. So, like, how did the body of the camera and the lens handle getting kicked? Because I know you have the protector on there, but like, it didn't mess up the lens, or did it cause any issues? Was that camera like dust after this session?
I wish I could say like it was totally fine. No, the fisheye got broken that day. That was definitely like, it did not. That was the last leg. It was an older fisheye, and that was like the autofocus broke after that, I think, or something. So we went a little too far. The lens probably got kicked like 20 times, like solid. But to this day, I've had the same lens for a few years, and it gets hit every time I shoot, and it's holding strong still. Everyone knock on wood if you have any wood. But yeah, so that lens was broken, but I think it was worth it. This photo's worth it. So next we have, this is the first photo I shot that I thought was good, basically. Like skate photo that I was like, oh, this looks really cool. Still had no clue what I was doing. This was like an accident. we were in Sedona with my friend Bucky and some other friends, and it was the night of my senior prom, actually, and I opted to go on a skate trip instead, so good choice. And yeah, I was shooting film still. I had one flash that I got from my friend Matt McCarrow, and it was just, just still experimenting. And we just got lucky that this was the right time, the right trick. And real quick, I was going to show you, well, there's two things. I want to show you that. This is another photo I shot that day. And not that this is a bad photo. This is Michael Tubbs. Shout out Michael Tubbs. And, but this is where I was at shooting skate photos. This is kind of a bit more of like a Fisher-Price, my first skate photo angle. Like it's not really how you would shoot this trick or how I would shoot it now at all. But it kind of just gives you a point of reference of this is more where I was at and that this was kind of a fluke, right? This was like an accident. But something about it worked. We knew that we liked the red rock and all that stuff. It was time and place. Other cool thing about this is it was really underexposed. It looked like that when I got it back from the lab, or I got the actual positive, and I had it scanned anyway, and then they brought it up, and it looked way better. I thought it was a bad photo at first, and I sent it to Transworld. It was one of my first photos ever published, and Skin, he loved it, and he's like, I'm gonna put it in the photo annual, and I was like, over the moon. I remember he called me when I just sat down to eat a plate of food, and I threw the whole plate of food away because I couldn't even, I was like shaking. And I was so excited, and I sent the negative or the positive and didn't really think about it, and then he called me like a couple days later, and he's like, what the fuck? This is really underexposed. And he's like, the file you sent me looked way better. And I just didn't even think about it. I was like, well, just make it look like the file. Like, what are you talking about? And he was really bummed on me, and they were able to fix it, and they made it look like that again, and they ran it. But after that, I sent more photos to him, and he was just really short with me. He's like, yeah, we don't need anything. And he just kind of cut me off. So I think I burnt a bridge with Skin, because I think he thought I was a liar, but I really just had no clue what the fuck I was doing. So that was a funny one. This is I just actually made a tweet about this recently, because I love coming up with dumb little names for things, like concepts, and this was a chance to I've been thinking this for a while. I have this theory that when you pop high enough out of a bank, you don't need an obstacle. If you're too high over the obstacle you're skating, actually. Once you go to a certain height, you're better off not having an obstacle. This is my theory. And this proves it, because Louis was kickflipping out of this bump over a shopping cart, and that looks really dumb. Obviously that's a bad catch, but and you're when a skater's skating, you're kind of like, how do I tell him that we need to move the shopping cart? Because he wants to overcome an obstacle, I get it, but I'm like, this is not it, so, and someone's like, why don't you turn it sideways? I'm like, it would look just as dumb. Then it gets real skate parky. So luckily Louis understood, or at least played along, and we moved the shopping cart, and then, that to me looks insanely better than that. So this is a theory I came up with called, post-obstacle theory, or post-obstacle phenomenon. So when I write my book, that'll be a chapter in there, but, also, I took out that pole behind him. That's just kind of a little commentary on Photoshop, and there's a lot of post that goes into these images that maybe aren't noticeable sometimes. If it's done well, it's not noticeable, but that pole was kind of just going right up his butt, and it was distracting, so we pulled that out. Any questions about post-obstacle phenomenon, or anything about those photos? Cool. So this is Fred Gall in Bangkok, Thailand. Just a real magical moment I got to be there for. Freddie, we were on this trip, and he had found this spot with these tall curbs. I don't even know if you call that a curb, it's just like a wall at that point. But the buses would drive by every night at rush hour, and they would get stopped, and they would go pretty slow. So Freddie decided he wanted to wall ride a moving bus. It's like the most Freddie shit ever. It's very derelict move. But he was like, yeah, I'm gonna wall ride a moving bus, that's my goal. So we went 2 nights in a row, probably about 50 buses total. We tried it on. He was ollieing into them at first, then realized it was too sketchy. He almost put his foot in the tire on one, and then realized all right, this is dangerous. So he did a caveman wall ride. This was a really good lesson for me in letting go of what I wanted to do, which this is a point in my career where I was like, I wanna shoot this perfect, beautiful photo. I wanna have it be fisheye with flashes and all this stuff. Obviously not possible in this scenario, and I was really bummed because I knew it was going to be a cool photo, but I couldn't shoot it the way I thought would be good. So I just set up long lens, super high ISO, fully cranked, whatever the max ISO was on the camera at the time, and just kind of took this snapshotty photo that I was really bummed on. We got back and I edited it, and I was just like, this photo is boring. Because I was so caught up in what the photo needed to be and what I needed to do that I lost complete, the concept of, this photo's amazing. He's just riding on a bus that was driving down the street. It's that moment of kind of realizing, oh, this is, not always about me. It's you're trying to make your art the best you can, but in this circumstance, it was about letting go and just being And it's not sharp. It's grainy, it's soft, and that bummed me out too. And then it printed, and it looked fine. I mean, it's soft and grainy, but I thought it looked fine. And it was a good lesson in like, sharpness isn't important. All these things that I thought were important up until this point are not important. If the photo's cool, the photo's cool. And I want to reference another kind of an iconic image. This next image is like a little violent, so if that bums you out, maybe just like look away on this one. It's kind of like a heavy photo, but it's a photo of when Robert Kennedy was assassinated that Bill Epridge shot. And it's a photo I think about a lot because I've always been struck by this photo. I just think it's really gnarly, but it's also really beautiful. But it's an example to me of like, this is not sharp. His face is super underexposed. It's grainy, but it's like beautiful and haunting and crazy. And I kind of think, the Freddie photo made me think about this photo because I had to learn, I was like, some of your favorite photos in the history of photography are not sharp. They're not perfect. They're not, there's so many things wrong with them, but they still come across as this like really interesting, beautiful thing. And again, to call this beautiful is weird and fucked up because it's obviously sad and horrible, but it's strange. But this is just a photo I reference in my head a lot when I think about imperfection in photos. So again, not nearly as culturally significant, but this is kind of like, I think of it as my version of that where it's like, oh, imperfection can be perfect in its own way. And side note about Bill Epridge, while we're on the top, he maybe shot the first skate photo of all time in the 60s. So shout out to Bill Epridge, maybe the first skate photographer ever. And that photo's just really sick. Any questions about any of that stuff? Yes. Ryan, can you run him a mic?
Oh, Mo.
Ryan, can you turn on the mic?
Okay, it wasn't coming through. With that photo of Freddie, a couple things. Do you remember what the caption said when it was posted?
I don't, do you?
No, because I didn't. The reason I'm asking is, first, I didn't know it was a caveman. And so I'm wondering, I grew up in an era where I can remember before screen grabs, before we had sequences. And part of the fun of photos is like trying to figure out what was happening or even what the trick was sometimes. Like, what is he doing, And so do you subscribe to that of not telling, so that there's some mystery associated, or do you want people to know what's going on?
So I love that, but I also think sometimes people feel a little deceived maybe. There's this again, it goes back to this skate photography being journalism, and that's how it started kind of, was telling this story, and it was documenting skating at the forefront of progression, and you wanted to know what was happening. I titled the file of this Caveman Wall Ride, but I don't remember if the magazine called it that or not. They might have just opted to be like, fuck it, he's on the wall, it's fine, But it's funny, you can see his left hand. Once you know it's a caveman, it makes a lot of sense because his hand's open and you can tell that he threw into it, which honestly, I don't know what's harder. I can't fathom cavemaning into a wall ride, so it kind of seems just equally as hard maybe. It's also just, he got high up, but the make was also not it's not really there's a video of it and it's fine. He kind of lands and stops and tic-tacs, and it was this anticlimactic moment of yeah, I did it? It's just it was more like a stunt, like a dangerous act more than a trick where you're gonna have to roll away and it looked good. So it's definitely a photo thing, but yeah, just a wild situation. Probably something I wouldn't put myself in that situation now. It was a little bit, a lot of people got upset over the course of 50 buses. All right, this is an interesting one. Does who knows this photo? Can anyone, anyone know this photo? Reference it? You can? Oh, maybe you can actually. But I was gonna say the reason is because it sucks, and no, it never got run. But this is this is a crazy thing I learned one day. I was shooting with Dane Brady in Portland, and Dane really changed how I shoot skate photos a lot because I came up in an era where this is a 4-foot gap to a 5-foot tall ledge, gap to back tail. It's you could get really jacked on this. It's gnarly. So my instinct was to zero it, right? Go low, fisheye, make it look tall, make the gap look big. That's my whole career was to do that, right? Yeah, you want to just make things look gnarly. And I had instances before where I shot certain angles and skaters would be look at it and they'd be oh, it doesn't look that big. And so I internalized that and I'm I always have to make it look big. The skater's gonna be bummed if it's not gnarly. So I set up and shot this angle to test it out, showed Dane, and he was kind of he's do you want to try it from above where I'm coming at you? And I'm just but what? The spot is gone then. What? You could just do that on a curb. And he was let's just try a few. So the photo we ended up getting that we liked that ran was this one. And it actually tells a whole different story. It's he's rocket ollieing because he kind of just swept into it a little bit and drooped it. And it was this whole it just completely changed. I never thought of shooting this spot like this, because again, they don't look anything the same. That, it looks gnarly, and this looks like almost absolutely nothing. But this photo, I think, is a million times better, and it got ran in Transworld, and people liked it, and Dane loved it, and I loved it. And it was the first time a skater, not the first time, because I have friends who've done this over the years, but like a skater that I was shooting with in a professional way, like for a magazine, like was willing to compromise like the gnarliness of a trick for a photo that he thought was interesting and cool. And that's always what I want, right? So this was a turning point for me where I was just like, oh wow, I want to do more of this. Like, I don't want to make anything look gnarly anymore. I just want to make it look interesting and fun and try and like find these other stories to tell. And Dane was definitely like, it feels so corny to use the word, but he was like a muse, you know? Like, you really have that where like someone inspires you, and every photo we shot just felt magical, and he has this like, and we really worked together. It was collaboration. When I lived in Portland, it changed how I thought about shooting skate photos, and everything I shoot now is informed because of that, like those 2 years I spent shooting Dane in Portland, and his view on things and what he thought was important in a photo. And so yeah, I trip sometimes when I think about this, just like the difference in those two spots. This is another good example of Dane. Just like, we went to shoot something else, and this was us just messing around with a slappy. It's literally nothing, and it's like one of my favorite photos I've shot, and he just looks sick in it, and you can almost like hear it, you know. And when we talk about it, we're shooting it, and I'm showing him, hey, what do you think of this one? What do you think of this one? And it was like, we talked about like, oh, you want to hear it, right? Like, this is like, I wanted you to hear it in the photo. And my dream, actually, when I made my magazine Golden Hour, I wanted it to be you know those greeting cards where you open them and they sing? They have a little thing. I wanted you to open the page and have a little thing in there. It's like you hear the slappy sound. It was very expensive to do, so we didn't do it. But one day we'll do it. My dream is to have a show one day where you have like a button you push under all the photos and you have the sounds. Like, it's like a little kid like See and Spell book or whatever. And another interesting thing about this is kind of a gearhead thing, but people ask me a lot what fisheye I shoot with. And I think it's because I shoot with a zoom fisheye. It's 8 to 15 millimeters, so you can shoot it at lots of different focal lengths. And I do a lot of like posts to kind of mess things around. So this is an 8 millimeter fisheye photo, which gives you a full circle vignette. So the original image looked more like this, right? But because the top corners are white and the bottom corners are black, I was able to go into Photoshop and just stretch them out and extend them and just burn them in and kind of make it, so basically the fisheye that shot this photo doesn't even exist. Because there's no 8 millimeter fisheye that has no vignette, but it's like you invent it when you're like doing the post and stuff. So when people ask what fisheye, I'll tell them what fisheye, but every photo has its unique weird, like, so some of them look really weird and you're like, what, why doesn't this look like this? And that's a fun thing about that lens, is you can kind of do all these zoom tricks. And again, this is a gearhead thing, so I'm sorry if anyone is bored. Any more questions about that, or, yeah?
Hi.
Hi.
So since you started shooting photos more like the Dane one, that were less traditional, have you had skaters ask you, hey, can you just shoot this normal?
No, not really, but because I think that at this point, I've kind of leaned into it so much that the type of skaters that want like to shoot with me understand what I probably want from it, you know, or like it just depends. And either that or they just trust me and they're like down to do it. I'm trying to think if anyone has like, there might have been a time where someone's like, hey, should we try this angle? Like suggested another angle maybe that like, because they didn't like that I was like a foot from their head and, you know, or some weird shit. But in that respect, I'll say, because you just brought up another good point, there's a lot of skaters who don't care about photos in this modern era of skating because they didn't grow up with magazines. It wasn't impactful to them. They want clips. So there's like top pros currently that I'll shoot with that I'm a huge fan of, and we get a photo and I'm so psyched, and they don't even want to see it. Like, they get it, and like, these are people I'm like so fanned out on, and I just got the sickest photo of them. I'm so excited, and I'm like waiting, like they're watching footage and they're like sick, and they just walk away. And I'm like, oh, I guess you'll see it when it comes out. But yeah, Marie.
Oh my god, that was fucking loud. For the gap back tail photo, I thought it was interesting how like the angle from the top, you thought it looked gnarlier from the bottom. It like almost made it look, I don't know, I feel like the framing and like the way that the fisheye like squashes people, like it almost just made it look like he was doing it on a curb when it was from the low angle. And I think it's like
that's a good point.
Like you can't tell like how big he is in comparison to the ledge like at all. Like
it's almost like it fakes it out too much that you lose the trust at this point because you're like, how tall is that actually?
Yeah, exactly. So
that's a good point.
I guess like I don't even know if I have a question. I just thought that was interesting.
No, I love
Like,
that. It
thought
really
was funny.
It just points out too that like you're looking at the photo. It's like again like I think of skate photos as art. It feels kind of corny to say that out loud, but like when you look at art, it's like just subjective, right? It's like what do you think of it? What do you like? Some might look at this and be like that's tall, and you might look at it and be like I don't know if that's tall. Like, that doesn't do what you think it does, and so that's what's so cool about it. And this one might look gnarlier to some people. Me with my like pea brain that I was like trained in like 2005 shooting photos with a Hasselblad fisheye like on the ground pointing straight up was just like needs to be big underneath. But yeah, Francois. All right, sorry. Nick's got the mic.
Hi, Matt.
Hi, Nick.
I have a quick question for you. I know that you are a dangerous photographer. We've done some dangerous
Hell yeah.
things together.
Danger.
Have you gotten any injuries? Have you gotten a board to the face? Anything where you've gotten physically altercated from a skateboard?
Yeah, for sure. Where's the dude who hit me yesterday? Someone hit me in the shin. This guy killed me yesterday. I pretended like it didn't hurt. It hurt so bad. I have a gnarly shinner, but it's all right. That's just what happens. Yeah, not as much as you would think. Again, there's a lot of knock on wood moments, but I recently got like a board to the arm, like grip tape side down, and it like tore my arm open. And we were like in Skid Row, like downtown, and it was just like really like not clean. And this is actually really funny. My wife had a pad in the car, and I actually used her pad to cover up my wound, and it helped a lot because they're very sticky, and it really was good. But yeah, so just like a few minor ones. I know people have had like their face destroyed, like Grant Britton and like John Humphreys. Yet like a board will hit someone in the nose and like break a nose, and they get black eyes, and like, again, not yet. I'm waiting on it, but not yet.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
I don't want to get any feedback, so I'm going to go like this. So I have a question. How much of an image do you feel is necessary to doctor? I struggle with this as well, that I don't want to remove any type of obstacle or object. Obviously, you're doing it for the art and the impression of the movement of the skateboarder. Like, how much do you feel is okay to remove from an image?
At this point, I don't care. I'm like so far into it where it's like so art to me that I'm like, you could cut everything out and I might think it looks sick. You know, like I think I used to probably be, you don't want to doctor the trick. You don't want to make something appear like, you want it to be as close to what actually happened, right? Because like, if someone ollies a hip and they're 3 feet in the air, you don't want to put them 5 feet in the air. Like that's a little disingenuous, right? But like, as far as like other stuff goes, I don't think it matters. Like if you want to make this blue sky night and you can do it in a way that looks cool, it's hard to do. That's the other thing. Like you can take it so far, but it has to look good. Like it's that like lie to me, but lie to me good thing. You know, it's like, I don't mind if it's like, because it's all entertainment to me at the end of the day. Like this is just something fun to look at. So yeah, I don't think there's a line if you do it well. I think you can do whatever and, like, I guess I take it back. The line is like faking a trick that never happened or existed, or being like someone's skill level is not here. You know, it's like, okay, we're not trying to. Then it's just like you're just lying to yourself. Like at that point, that's not really helpful. But yeah.
Yeah. So kind of with that, like with a lot of the post production, you're taking stuff out and kind of like changing the colors or the exposures and stuff. But as far as the composition, are you trying to get? Do you kind of leave that? Like, are you trying to get the right composition, like, in camera?
Usually that's like, yeah, but even then sometimes, especially with the fisheye stuff I do now, where it's like, I shoot everything with a little vignette, and then sometimes I can crop into that vignette, and sometimes I don't have enough room, so I'll like have to like liquefy edges or clone things or whatever, so it's almost like you're building kind of a new composition a little bit, like 90% of it's there, you know? So like the goal is always to get it as close in camera, which is funny because when you're shooting for yourself, that's great. But the second you work with like an art director or someone at a brand or a magazine, they hate that shit because they want leeway. They want like edges. They want to be able to like play with it and do their thing. And I used to get yelled at the magazine a lot because I would have like, you know, fingers and toes would be at the far reaches of the frame. And the art directors would just be like, we can't fit this. Like what, you know, and I just always thought, well, it's a selfish way of work. Now I work differently. Now it's like I think about the whole ecosystem, whereas then it was just like, oh, this is how the photo looks best as it stands on its own. So that's how my brain kind of formed around it. But now I have to like, depending on what I'm shooting for, it's definitely like, it kills you a little bit, especially with fisheye, to back up that extra 6 inches or a foot and leave edges, it changes the whole energy of the photo. Because when you have a board on the edge of the frame, like if you go back to the, where was it? Uh-oh, my clicker's not working. Ryan, did you sabotage Mike? There we go. Like that wheel wouldn't look, if I had to back up even 3 inches, that wheel would be so much smaller. So it's like, when you have to make those sacrifices, it really hurts as like when you want to make the specific photo. So I will say that I want to get composition right, at least 90 to 95% of the way there, and if I have to doctor some stuff later. But yeah, we're not like compositing the skate photos at this point. Yeah, Dally.
Do you ever shoot, like, I guess kind of a two-part question, like, do you ever shoot a safe photo when it's like something gnarly? And also, like, at what point did you start just shooting things how you wanted to? At what point in your career was it like acceptable to, okay, I'm going to shoot this photo like my way as opposed to like, the photo that shows the trick in the gnarliest way?
Yeah. It just depends on who it is, what it is. If it's something really scary for someone and I know they're just going to do it once, I'll probably shoot a safe photo, because that's like, you have to put the respect for the skater and the trick over your art, right? You're just like, oh, I actually have one in here that maybe we can jump around a little bit here. We'll come back to this one. But this is a good, wait, don't look. This one. So this is a good example of that. So Nick Matthews, the gnarliest backsmith I've ever seen in my life. So this is the photo that got published. This is the photo that ran, right? This is the photo you would know. This was the first angle I shot. And this was like me, like, I wasn't wanting to shoot a safe photo. I was just like, oh, I want this, like, the building's cool. I want symmetry. I want this weird backlight and all this weird shit. I shot this and I liked it. And I started packing up because I'm like, I got the photo, I'm good. He was still trying. And then I thought, oh, I'll just shoot another one that's a little more like conventional. Shot this one, still added blur and stuff. But then immediately once I saw this, I thought, oh, this is the right photo for this trick. Because this trick is so gnarly and he works so hard on it that this was me playing artist and this was me like documenting, right? And when the trick is this caliber, you're like, documentation wins out sometimes. Obviously I did some fun stuff to it that I still made it feel like I liked the photo. But that was a moment where I really needed, not a safe photo, but a safer photo, right? Like you just want to so it just depends. And when you see someone really working hard for a very gnarly trick that's like, this is pushing the standards of skateboarding, when it's like, kind of at the forefront of what's possible, that's when you play it a little safer, because the story is, holy shit, he backsmithed this flat bar. The story isn't like blurry lights and like, let's have fun and, have an acid trip in a photo. But, so yeah, just, that actually was a good question. Just led me right in there. The other answer is, so I really got comfy shooting photos like the way I wanted when I stopped getting paid to shoot skate photos. When I worked at CCS, I was like the brand director, and I shot photos sometimes, but it was mostly for fun. It was secondary. My job was like having Zoom calls with Nike and shit, and it wasn't based on shooting the best skate photos anymore, so it really opened me up. And that was when I was shooting with Dane and Emil and those dudes in Portland, and it was this moment of like, oh, I don't care. These aren't for anyone. They're just for us. So that was kind of like, once you stop making something your job, you can do it kind of like the best, most like organic way, I guess, if that's the right word, or the most genuine way to you and how you want to do it. So, yeah. Far back.
Hey, so you were talking about composition and getting safe shots, but a lot of the time, like as a skate photographer, I'm often working with filmers that are also filming the trick at the same time. And as skaters, we tend to gravitate towards the clip or the photo. How do you balance fighting if you want to shoot wide angle underneath the stair set, but the filmer is shooting long lens, doesn't want to get you in the shot, or vice versa, if you want to shoot long lens, you don't want the filmer in your photo? How do you work around that?
Well, the easiest way is to just get rid of the fucking filmers. No, just kidding. I love the filmers. But when that was the best part about shooting with Dane and those guys, they didn't have a filmer. So like that, you really got to just get in there and do what you wanted. Now it's like, I kind of default to, it just depends too. If the filmer is someone who I know really has, maybe this sounds fucked up, but it's not like, it's almost like who has more of a vision for what they're doing, and you kind of discuss it. Because there's times where I have a really strong vision of what I want the photo to be, and I'm with a filmer who's like, oh yeah, I'm just good to get fisheye back up a little, it's fine. But sometimes I'm with like Jacob Harris or like Ben Shadorn, or people that like have this vision, and then I just default to them. Like I respect their work so much, and I'm like, oh, you're gonna make something amazing with this. I'll just step back and shoot long lens, or I'll just change. So again, it goes to that point of like, I'm not shooting the Thrasher cover. This photo's not as important as it could be probably. So like, I'm willing to default to them in that situation. So it's just having a conversation and kind of figuring out. It's hard when like I was younger. I think there's more of a battle because everyone thinks their thing needs to be the most important thing. And certainly at this point, if there's a filmer who's like going crazy and like really doesn't want me in a shot, I'm happy to just get out of the way. If they think their thing is more important, then it is. It's like, that's fine. I don't want to get in a fight at a skate spot. I'm almost 40. It's like a 20-year-old activity for me. Yeah. Ryan, can we get you to...
Yeah, also, do you want to continue with some slides after this question?
Yeah, we can bounce around. I don't know. I'm down to answer questions. Let me get back to where I was before. Let's figure out what's interesting here. I'll go back to Tom. But you can do your question first,
Cool.
and then I'll jump back
Yeah,
in.
in the sort of same vein of like the entertainment versus journalism and sort of the relationship between the best photo, the attempt that was landed, and sort of how that's changed over time with like, you know, photos running in mags that were never landed versus the best photo is not always the attempt that was the make versus, I don't know, how do you kind of balance all those things or feel about how that's evolved or how some people are more strict and harsh on that kind of issue? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's all just personal preference. My preference is that as long as the trick happened, I'm cool with it. And honestly, sometimes if the trick could happen, I have stuff I shot with Dane which it's also up to the skater ultimately. If the skater is like comfortable not landing it and having it come out because they know they could do it, but they're not going to film it, I don't care. You know, like again, if it's that backsmith of Nick, like yeah, there's footage. There has to be footage, right? But like Dane, we've shot photos where we've gotten a sick one, and he's like, I don't really want to do it. And I was just like, you don't want to just roll away from it? You can. And he's like, no, I'm not going to film it. Like, it's a cool photo. And he just walks away. And again, he's a really unique skater in that way, where I'm just thinking you wouldn't just land it for the sake of it. So I'm not too bothered as long as the skater's cool with it. I do think that when it comes to like picking the best frame, all bets are off. Like, as long as the trick got landed, you pick the frame from the session that you like the best. I think that's like, because that moment's not fake. That moment happened, right? Like, it was really... And yeah, like maybe the footage isn't the same, but that's what's cool about photos and footage. Like, I think they should be different. It's really boring when there's like an era of skate mags where every like clip in a video was a sequence in the magazine, and it was so stupid. You'd open a mag and I remember as a kid being so bummed because Ave had a DC ad, and it was a nollie crook like 180 at the ledges, the USC ledges in LA, and then the DC video came out, and I was so excited to see what's Ave's last trick, and that was his last trick. And I already saw it. And I saw a sequence of it that looked exactly the same. And I was like, what? You guys are idiots. How do you think this is not ruined? Like, they're like, well, it's different. And you're like, it's not different. Like, it made me so mad. So I always I love when a photo looks nothing like the clip. Like, that's to me the exciting thing about photography and video being so different is you can make them look so different. So why wouldn't you? And I think there's some tricks that are photo tricks and some tricks that are video tricks. I go out and shoot with people, and like last week, dude was trying an insane manual trick, and I just was like, hey, if you're cool, I'm just not gonna shoot this, because like, what are you gonna do with a sequence of this? Like, the clip is gonna, and he got it, thankfully, but like, there's just no point. Like, save the juice for something else. Like, let's go find a ledge you can front nose after this, and we can do some weird shit. Like, that's, so yeah, I think it needs to be separate, I think, and different. And this is probably a good example of that. I don't even know if Tom filmed this or not. This is Tom K doing a pole jam into a new portal, and this was a really cool example of Tom's a skater who's really thoughtful, and he had this spot, and he specifically wanted me to shoot it. Like, he thought about my photos and thought about how this would look, and he came to me and was like, I have a photo I want you to shoot, which is always like such an honor when a skater is like, I appreciate what you do, I want you to try to do this thing with me. And because of that, the photo came out really sick. We went there to work on it together. It was 3 in the morning, and Tom had to go to Walmart to get a fucking screwdriver to move that thing. We got to the spot at 2:30, and Marby was there, and we had skated a spot right before that, and we were exhausted. It was my anniversary. I had screwed up and planned a skate session on my anniversary. Bad day. And then it's 2:30, and we're out in the IE, like an hour and a half from LA, basically, and Tom's like, oh, I need a screwdriver. And I'm like, oh, well, session's over. Let's just go home. He goes, no, I found a Walmart, 24 hours. It's 10 minutes away. And me and Marby are in the car just like, okay. We just sat and waited, and we finally got into this school at 3 in the morning, like did the whole thing. Well worth it in the end, you know. Ended up getting home at like 5 in the morning. And Susie was not happy. It was a rough, it wasn't a good homecoming that day, but I was like, I showed her the photo, and it didn't change anything at all. But maybe now she thinks it's worth it. Another cool thing about this photo is we shot these 2 angles. And this is an instance where I just think, I don't know which one I like better. I like them both for different reasons. I love how this one, he's changing, right? He's in like half in another dimension, half in the new dimension, and he's like a different person. And I like the fact that I think Pepper maybe used both ultimately. It was for Pepper grip. And I love when that can happen. When you have 2 angles, it's like, fuck it, use both. Like, you don't have to pick one always. And I just thought that was cool. And also shot these fun little triptychs of him. This reminded me of like a video game character, like ascending to the next level or something. No one used these though. But that's a little behind the scenes photo of where I had to fit to do that. There's been a lot of times in my life where I've been like shooting a photo and I just thought, God damn it, I wish I was smaller. I think like a tiny photographer would really enjoy that position. That was very uncomfortable for me. But yeah.
And Marby showed that, right?
What? Oh yeah, Marby did shoot that. Sorry, photo credit to Marby. Shout out to Marby, she's here somewhere. So this is, I put this photo in here purely just to tell you guys that I'm colorblind. And this is a shout out to everyone who's colorblind, especially if you're shooting photos or making videos. I used gels on this photo with the flashes and I still don't know what color they are. Also, I think they're kind of vague maybe, so people have told me different colors. That's the thing, I think everyone's a little colorblind. People will be like, oh, that's crazy, but then you hear people get into arguments about color that are not colorblind, and I'm like, this is kind of a scam. I don't think anyone really knows. I just know I like the way it looks. The board looks cool. I just like, we threw a couple gels on there, and Neckface was there, and he's like, what color are you using? I just was like, dude, I don't fucking know. And they just look cool, and they're warm to me and fun, and it just made the photo a little more exciting. And the board graphic, though, it's mainly just a photo of the board. I know that's red, so I am there with that. I can tell that board is red. But yeah, it's fun to use colors, and even when you don't know what they are, kind of. Okay, so this is another one I want to talk about, like the process of like finding the right photo. This is a 3-flip nose slide, which is a hard trick to get a still of, and he was just messing around, and I started shooting them and like, oh, can I make it a still? Because I don't want a sequence of a 3-flip nose slide on a curve. It's not like as impactful. And Louis was trying this trick, and basically I started shooting and kind of like messing around and was like, okay, that looks dumb. That is too early. Like, these things like, not really. You want to tell the story of what it is enough. And okay, that's a 3-flip nose slide, kind of. No Louis, but it's getting there, right? So I showed him, we looked at it, and I'm like, okay, let's try this kind of timing. And then that one's bad. Oh, this one happened, and I was like, oh, that's probably it. But again, you have to go past. So it's like, we got it. I think we got it. I'm like, this is the best we're going to get on this little blue curve. But then we tried a few more, which that's a tray-flip nose slide. Like, that one is also a tray-flip nose slide. But once I got this one, I was like, oh, well, this is a bad version of that one. So again, you stop him and just go, okay, cool, we're good. We got the one. It's like we had it. But it's this like fun dance where you're figuring out what you even want, And I was shooting a sequence on this one as well, which is like kind of to see what frames look good. Like that's another thing I think you should like utilize all the tools at hand. Like it's not like this game where you're like, you gotta know the exact moment to shoot it. It's like, no, you got 10 frames per second. Shoot a sequence first, see what looks coolest. You never know. Maybe there's like a random frame that will look sick that you didn't even know. And so yeah, this is just an example of like a photo that I just really, what was the first one again? And that's the edited one, right? There, yeah. So I just thought that was a cool example of like, oh, we got really lucky and like made a photo of a tray flip nose slide that actually looks interesting enough and tells the story enough. He's got tray flip feet, you can kind of tell. And he was happy with it, so that's good. Any more questions about anything pertaining? Yeah.
Is there a trick that, like, by convention, skateboarding says is not a good photograph that you're like maybe hunting to make a good photograph out of that trick?
Oh, all of them. I think that's I love that. It's like a goal to like try to get a photo of an unphotographable trick, and some are just too far gone. And sometimes you have the energy and sometimes you're just like, I don't even want to try this right now. But like back three was one, I remember. Some people have shot stills of back threes when I was younger and I really liked them. And I started trying to find the perfect timing for a back three photo, which is actually funny. I shot a photo of Ryan Reyes doing a back three down a double set, a still, and it ran in the magazine. And 2 days later, I woke up with a text from Heath Kirchart. And at the time, I hadn't talked to him in a while, and he just was like, "You can't shoot a still of a back three." And I was like, "Damn, I really ruffled some feathers over here." To which I told him, "Heath, you're wrong," and being dumb. You know what? So yeah, I think I'm always trying to find stills of how. It's the jockish part of what I do, where I think it's like, oh, can I do it? It's the challenge of like someone's like, I'm doing a switch frontside flip fakie manual, and you're like, we'll find a still in that, which you don't. That trick is probably impossible, but you never know. Marie, you next.
Would you ever think to make a skater change like the dimensions of their board to like fit the proportions of their body in the spot better or something like that? Like say they I don't know, say it's like a tall person skating like a 32-inch board, and it's like a flat bar, and you want the trick to look super tweaked out really close. Like, have you ever thought about playing with things like that, like making someone change their gear to like facilitate a better photo?
So I've never thought about it in respect to a board, because that's like equipment, and I would feel bad asking someone to try on different equipment usually, you know, like, but I have asked skaters for sure. Like, I show them a frame and they keep covering their face, and I'll be like, is there any way you can think about just leaving this arm down? Which is like a crazy ask. Like, it feels insane to ask someone that. They're doing like a kickflip back tail down like an 8-stair rail, and you're just like, but it starts to look so easy sometimes. You watch them get in like 20 times in a row effortlessly and not slam, so it's like you get numb to how hard it is. So I have asked that as far, or like change a shirt for sure. Be like, oh, your black shirt's blending in. Do you have something else in the car? And they might have like a white shirt or a yellow shirt. But I only do it with skaters that I'm really comfortable with. I wouldn't like ask a new skater like, hey, when you're doing this trick, could you like just look up at the sky? You know, like, it's because there are things I want sometimes. You get one frame where there's no hand in front of the face, and you're like, God damn it, can you do that every time? And I'll make the ask when I feel very comfy, and it's still a little bit like, it feels really weird to do. But again, if I'm like, I know someone well, I'll be like, yeah, maybe. And I ask, can you do it? Because sometimes, like, if you can't, don't worry. Because what if you tell them, can you keep your arm down, and they eat shit on the next try? You know that was because they were thinking about their arm and not the trick. So it's a delicate dance, and it's nice to have people push back on it, because sometimes you get a little too like big for your britches and think like you're the director. You know, it's like, I'm gonna direct you right now, and then you get instantly reminded like, this is not about you. And it's important when that happens. Do yours.
Yeah, hey, what up? I think like I and everybody in this room really appreciates how candid you are about explaining pretty much in detail how you achieve the shit that you do and and like how things look. You will tell us how you did it. Mystery is like real important. Like I do not want to know how Sturt did anything. Like I don't want to know shit.
Sure.
Is there anybody, like it's obvious you have this approach about it and you're not afraid to tell us this. Is there anybody in your life that sort of, it's obvious this is important to be like this to you. Is there anyone to you that inspired you to, I don't know, you're not really gatekeeping.
Yeah,
like
give out the playbook, like, dude.
And I don't even mean skate people necessarily. I mean people in your life. Like, is there anyone that really ever showed you how important that is? And we all really appreciate that because you're inspiring the shit out of everybody, and you're telling us kind of like how you do it. So it's very cool.
Thank you. I think it more just comes from growing up here, you know, which there's a cool skate community here for sure, but we still felt isolated from like the skate industry. And I didn't know anyone who shot. Actually, Andrew Almendarez is here. He's the only person I knew who shot skate photos. And he showed me a lot of shit when we were in high school, right? Which was awesome. But you felt kind of like this thing where like, how do you get this information? Where is it? And I remember just feeling so lost at that moment. And when you finally find it, it's like the best feeling in the world. So I think I just operate under the like, just based off that feeling is like when you feel so lost and you're like, I don't even know where the fuck to start, and someone tells you where to start, it's like the best feeling ever. So a few key people, like Andrew was early on in showing me stuff. Like he let me shoot with a fisheye for the first time, which was like insane for me. He had a film camera. I shot a film sequence. I think I shot a film sequence of him nollie flipping the 6-stair, and it was the first time I shot fisheye, first time I shot skate, like just a real skate photo, and like that was huge for me. And then Matt McCarrow, rest in peace, he passed away, but he was a photographer in Southern California who I met him online, and he like sold me his old gear, and just like I think it's just the people when you get that door unlocked and you realize how much is stopping you because there's one door unlocked. You're like, oh, I could never do this. And then someone unlocks one door and you're like, oh, I can do all this. Like immediately it changes everything. So I think coming from that perspective of having had that happen for me in general, like I just remember how helpless you feel when you don't know how to start something, and then someone just giving you the template a little bit is huge. So also, fuck people who don't give out the secrets. Like if you give out your secrets and everyone gets better than you, then you weren't that good in the beginning. Like also, if everyone learns how to do your shit, then you better change your shit and do new shit. Like it's inspiring, you know, like I see so many sick fisheye photos now, like real close and energy and shit, and I'm like, well, these are all so sick. And then what it does is like, okay, I want to do something different now. I want to like move, I want to try some other weird shit and see, like, you know, because it's good for the ecosystem, you know. And also just like, dude, there's only a handful of voices making these calls in skateboarding, and it's like, fuck that, you know, like let someone feel empowered to start a magazine, like Mess, you know, like that's, I think, so cool, like to people. And that kind of stuff, just making sure people have the playbook is super important. And I'm working on some stuff now. I want to do some like YouTube shit that's more like informative about just like how the sausage is made, whole process top to bottom, because I just think that stuff, it's fun to do, and also I think it's important. And it's like, shooting skateboard photos doesn't really give back to the earth, so you have like it's like this tiny way of feeling like, oh, you're doing something to help someone. Skateboarding in general can be really selfish, and shooting, like, this can all be like me all the time, so it's like the only thing I feel like I have to give in that way, so it's like, all right, I'm old, I should start giving. It's time. Yeah, Patrick.
Does anybody have a copy of Mess Magazine? Because I forgot to get one last night.
I got one right here, Patrick. You need it?
Bong. All right, so hard-hitting question for you, Matt. You've got people in this room, not only from all over the United States, but from all over the world. Is it still necessary to move to California, LA, San Diego, Orange County, Bay Area, to make it in skateboard media? Or are we in a moment now where people can really start establishing themselves without having to make them move? And I bring this up because this is going to be probably talked about in tomorrow's discussion around planning. California is not only one of the most expensive states in the country, it also has some of the most hyperinflated real estate markets in the world. It's hard to pull up and start from zero. So do people still need to come to California?
I don't know what you're talking about. I live in LA. It's super cheap. I don't know. No, not at all. But also it depends on what your goals are, right? Like whenever there's a young photographer, or skater, anyone kind of asking me advice on like how to do things, I say, okay, what are your goals? Like, what do you want out of this? Do you want to be the Thrasher staff photographer or like shoot the covers? Yeah. Do you want to be the Ted? Like, Ted's going to end up in San Francisco at some point because that's all roads lead to there, right? If you want to like run Thrasher magazine, yeah, you got to be an SF. If you want to just start your own mag and like shout out your own scene and like maybe get some sponsorship money from some brands through some local reps, like there's a million ways to do something and make something where you're at. So the answer is absolutely not. You don't have to do any of that shit. But if you want like certain things, it's like saying like you don't have to go to college to do anything. It's like, well, if you want to be a neurosurgeon, you have to go to college, right? Like there's some things you need a degree for and some things you don't. You can go on YouTube and maybe learn how to do a trade or, there's jobs. So it's kind of like depends on what your goals are. I think having people kind of like figure out what they want first is the best way to start answering that question and say like, with skaters, I say like, what's the career you want? Do you want to buy a house off skating or do you want to have like 5 years of travel, like, cause they're two very different paths to go down. And if you're not worried about like, retiring off this, then there's a whole way to have fun and do this because there's not a lot of money and people are underpaying people and there's a lot of issues with that. But like, so I think it's just all about your goals and figuring out what you want, and then from there, figuring out the path, because there's lots of them. But yeah, I think it's awesome that people can stay where they're at and build a scene. Yes, Ted from Thrasher Magazine.
We've got a Potrero Bull Barney who's got a question for you.
He's gonna heckle me, isn't he? Is he drunk back there?
Yeah, definitely. How do you hell ride? No, I would just like to reiterate Ryan's point. I think you are the best practicing photographer in the world right now.
This is questions, not compliments. We're not doing compliments right now.
I've had the pleasure of witnessing you for a while, and this is a really good picture to be on. Your technique, the things that, go viral, the things that people really notice you for are emulated quite quickly, especially in the world of the internet. And I know every few years you get really bored with your own photography and you have to kind of go deep down into the experimentation where you see maybe some old guard trans world people, definitely not from the other magazine, but they get stuck in just kind of conventional traditional lighting or sitting down at the bottom of the 16 or whatever. They have the techniques that have been developed through the publications we grew up with. But I feel like every couple of years you get weird with it. And how do you how do you push through those inspirational slumps, and where do you feel like you really draw stuff from? I know sometimes they can be television dramas, sometimes they can be from art museums. Like, what is your main way to stay out of those slumps when it seems like the tide is catching up to you creatively?
It's almost like you knew what was coming next with this presentation. Yeah, I think, first off, thank you for bringing up Thrasher's monumental contribution to skate photo lighting, because we should shout that out for sure. It's a joke. So I just think, inspiration, comes from lots of places, and now as you get older, I think it comes less and less from skating and more from outside sources, right? I used to just be a skate photographer, and I didn't really care about photography as an art form outside of that. And then the last 10 years, I've really gotten into just being more of a photo nerd and just finding like art photographers I love and things like that. This photo in particular this is like an example where it was fully thought out. I knew exactly what I wanted to shoot, and it was inspired by these next 3 things. So this is a photo by Thomas Campbell that is maybe one of my top 3 favorite photos of all time. It's from a book called Seeing Fatima's Eyes. It's a Morocco surf book he did. And this is like, I love what this does, because like, again, you're looking at it in the context of a surf book, you know what it is, right? Maybe without that you might not know right away, but like, he took as much as he possibly could out of this informationally, but still gave you the bulk of what you need to know, right? And it's beautiful. I mean, this is a bad like internet version. I bought a print of this and I have it on my wall and I look at it every day. I love it. So I love this concept of just breaking something down, pulling as much information out as you can, with still kind of understanding the essence of it. So that's kind of like, this is inspiring me a lot right now and how I want to shoot some skate photos and get weird. This photographer, Ernst Haas, is amazing. He was kind of like a mid-century, like kind of like a lesser-known William Eggleston type, like color, kind of like pioneer of color art photography. Tons of motion. Like this photo to me is like amazing. This is like the best possible way you could shoot this action because it's so much energy. It looks so hectic and like wild. It kind of just conveys how terrifying it would be to actually ride a horse that's trying to kill you. I don't know what's actually happening when you're at a rodeo, but I assume the horses are trying to kill the people, and that's why it looks insane, because they look like they are. So it just conveys the energy and almost this like terror, this beautiful like terror, whatever. And I love his stuff. It gets me hyped. And then this is a painting by Degas, Dancer on Stage. And this was kind of another one, like impressionist painters have been getting me stoked. This is where I get real like high art, but I just love the concept of impressionism, especially translated to photography, where you just like, again, you take out information, but you still make it look beautiful, and so you can understand it. And if you look at these 3 photos, you know exactly what I was trying to do with this. And even that corner, like the grass in the corner, if you look at like, that was an accident, but like the corner of this painting and the corner of that photo, I was like so excited when I saw it, because I was like, oh my God, I did a similar thing. But yeah, right now, so that's what's inspiring me right now, is this concept of like, just, and this is shot in the daytime with an ND filter at like 1/10 of a second, like midday, no flashes, which, again, I love making shit blurry with flashes because you still have some sharp moments and you can get that information. Now I'm kind of leaning into like, fuck the information, like this is Heath, and you don't need to know that it's Heath. Like it's just it's a front, you know it's a front blunt, and you know it's green, and that's pretty much what I wanted from it. So I don't know, maybe it's pushing it too far, and I bet people don't like this nearly as much as they love like a foot into the lens, but it's just what's getting me excited right now, is this kind of concept of like this impressionist skate photography, I guess. And God, these things come out of my mouth and I sound like an asshole, I feel like. I should say them a lot more like with confidence though, I guess. But yeah, so that was a great, thank you for that question, Ted, at that time. This is a photo that I just love. This is an example of a skater, Marie, she's here. And she was just out skating one day. I don't know what inspired her to do this, but she just went skating in a full yellow kit one day and posted on Instagram and was skating yellow spots. And I was just like, what the fuck are you doing? Let's go shoot this. Like this is, when you see a skater, you know, doing something that is like above and beyond, it's like abnormal, it's artistic, and just like, you're like, oh my God, I want to be a part of this so bad. So we planned the day, we recreated it, which sometimes doesn't work out. This worked out great. We went to yellow spots. I love the way this photo came out. I love this one. This was the spot I think she skated in the clip, and it's just, I love a photo like this where it's like produced, you know, like she made that outfit, she painted the shoes, she like painted the grip. It's like so much goes into it to make this fun, simple trick look really interesting. Shout out to Chandler for sneaking into the photo there. And yeah, I'm finding spots that match like those. Again, I'm colorblind, but I understand what's happening here, right? I know. And interesting side note about this was, while I was putting this presentation together, I was looking at the Jason Lee photo, and on my desktop, I just glanced, and this was on my desktop like this. And I was like, no fucking way. And I texted Maria, I was like, is this the same hydrant? And she's like, yeah, it is. And I had no clue. We shot this photo like 2 years ago, and these were just sitting like this on my desktop, and I glanced, and I was like, oh my God. So that's kind of cool. That's accidental inspiration there, but thanks, Marie, for taking me to an iconic spot. And why do these ones get zoomed in? They're ass. But this is just an example of like telling 2 stories with one photo. Like this is kind of like I like this one, it was cool, but then like this one really got me, because you're telling this like speed story with his foot being blurry and the way he's moving and shit, but then you're telling more of the trick story in the shadow. And this is like a thing I've been trying to do more of too, where it's like, how do you tell two stories with this weird framing and shit? And I just thought this one worked out really good. I hate that my shadow's in there, but sometimes you can only do what you can. But this is another example of that with Ben Rayborn, where, and this photo wouldn't work if it was anyone else, because like he's out of focus, but it's like that's Ben Rayborn, right? Like there's no question about it. So that's the story there, and I'm like, oh, so you're telling the story of this is Ben Rayborn, and then you look down and you're telling the story of Ben Rayborn's doing an invert on an 11.5-foot bowl, and it's kind of these two moments that kind of like, and I'm always curious where people's eye goes first, because mine definitely goes to his glasses first. Like I see, oh, it's Ben, and then I see what he's doing. This was also just really lucky. Like sometimes you get a lucky moment like this, and now I'm like trying to recreate this forever whenever I have the chance. Yeah.
How do you battle with like getting like deciding whether to have a person's face or like not? Like your last photo, I preferred the one where you could actually see his face in it, but you preferred the one without. So I guess that battle of like, do you show the skate face or do you not? Like, do you battle with that consistently or no?
Yeah, I think the goal is to always try to show the face. I know Grant Britton's rule that he taught me early on was like, make anything you want blurry, but the face has to be sharp. That was like his rule. So I kind of always, you want to see the face, but sometimes like this one was good, but I just like this one better because of the story that it told. Also like, he's more caked up in this one, so I think the focus is his butt maybe. But, so I guess if the skater you're shooting has, other assets that you want to highlight, you don't need to show their face. No, I think, I just think it depends on the photo, and you're shooting like if there's the form, sometimes you'll shoot a shot, like butt shot is like kind of the rule, like you want to shoot things from the face side always, but if someone has like an insane style and they're catching a kickflip like super boned out, it doesn't really matter, like the form is there. So I think it's just all kind of like you play it by ear and whatever feels right in the moment, but I'm not mad at a no face skate photo at this point. I probably would have been like 10 years ago. I would have been like, you broke the rule. Like Grant Britton made rules and we followed them, and like, after about 15 years of like following the rules, you're kind of like, oh, I'm so bored of the fucking rules. He used to like get mad at me for like crooked horizons and shit, and like you just kind of like, part of you was like, oh, get over it.
Matt, over here.
Over here, sorry.
Hi, Matt.
Hi, George.
I have a question for you, and kind of generally, there's a lot of photographers here, and you talk about inspiration, but like, where's photography going in general? Because you have a foot in skate, but also in a broader marketing world, and there's a lot of talk about AI, and I personally right now I think it looks kind of crummy, but it's gonna get better. And like, how does that work into our general, as photographers who use digital, and I think you still shoot film, I still shoot some, and like, that has a hard place, but like, where does photography in general go with AI and technology improving, and how does that affect skate photos and the broader photography in the world?
I mean, the easy answer is wherever the hell you want it to go, right? Like, it's cool that like you can take it in all these directions. And shout out to all the photographers here. I'm psyched that there's so many in one place. It's awesome. It's a rare thing to be in a place with so many skate photographers at once. It's not it's a niche, it's small, so it's cool when this happens. No, I think, I would be super, like, it would be ridiculous of me to say like, oh, what the future is, but I just think it's going to be a combination of things. Like, I will use AI to like take shit out of the background now. Photoshop, you can just like select and say like, take this pole out, and it does it. And you're like, well, it looks pretty good. So I think it comes down to the rule is like, if it looks cool, it looks cool. I've generated AI skate photos, and I'm actually reading later based on some of this stuff, but I want to make an AI skate zine that's like, it'll be a joke for sure, because it's awful, like you said. AI is still really, it's crummy, but like when you type in a prompt like, kickflip in the air, fisheye, black and white, like all these things, you get these weird distorted magic carpet boards with like 7 trucks and like 2 faces, and like I think that looks sick actually. Like, I've generated some AI skate photos that I think look awesome, and like in a way that they're bad, but it's funny. It's like this whole, so it becomes an art of its own, right? Like the prompting in AI is going to become its own art. Like, who's doing the best prompts and making it, because it's like just another tool to make interesting things. So I think like ultimately I don't think any of it is bad. I think it's all just tools. It's like when everyone hated Instagram and they're like, this stuff's stupid, and then all of a sudden like 5 years later everyone's on Instagram and TikTok comes out and everyone's like, that one's stupid, and you're like, it's just a tool. Like, the tool changes and the platform changes, it's all the same shit, So I think I'm excited to see the future of it. I don't really know where it's going or what it's going to be, but things like skating and like, something like skating or surfing or whatever, like, are always going to be so nuanced that like it's going to be, they'll be the last kind of bastion of like AI kind of taking over, right? It's just going to be like the hardest thing for, like, at this point, like, big brands still don't know what the fuck to do in skating. They come in and do the stupidest shit ever. Not the ones that come in proper do it right, but I'm saying, like, brands that want to put a skater in an ad and don't know how to, like, you know, show it right, like, they're still so far behind without AI, without all these things. It's like, it's going to take so long for it to really permeate the world, unless, of course, my AI skate mag takes off, and then, then you're all fucked. No. But no, that is a good question, and yeah, I think that's an unpopular opinion. I know a lot of like film photographers and analog purists that like would be really upset at the idea of an AI skate photo. I just think it's funny. Like, it's just hilarious. I don't know, there's not much to say about this. This is just another color experiment. I just love this photo of Ben. Oh, there's one takeaway here that I think is interesting that I've learned is like, there's an axis, I don't know if that's the right word even, basically like, there's a thing that happens with a head and a skateboard, and I always notice that my favorite photos, as far away as the head can be from over top of the board, the photo gets better. Because it like increases the danger. If you look at like old photos of Tony Alva, I should have put them in here, like Tony Alva grinding a pool for the first time, or like Scott Oster, if anyone's familiar, like he grinds pools like upside down. And they're the sickest photos you've ever seen because his head is lower than his board, which is crazy. But like that's the ultimate like skate photo moment, is when your board is ahead of your head or behind it. It's this slant that happens, and I think that's always like, because you'll be shooting and you have 10 that look fine, and then one looks amazing, and you're like, what's the difference? And the difference is, oh my god, the head is like another 6 inches over, and it increases the danger level. So this is an example of like he's, you know, his head's nowhere near above the center of his board, and also there's a moon shape here. Whenever your skater's shaped like a moon, good photo. Like, no matter what happens, you're like, I'll always like end up with that shape, and I'm like, oh, I like that. And it's that, especially if they're like on the edge of the fisheye, and the fisheye's helping like make the moon shape. There's just certain skater shapes that I just notice for me when I get them. I'm like, that's the best one. But yeah, it's just a little example of that. And this is an example of shoot everything when you're on a session. Always be ready. You might turn around and see Ben shooting honey out of his nose, and you might need a photo of it. And you'll be glad you have it later. And then, oh, this is, I don't want to tell this story, actually. I already thought it. Sorry, guys. Someone asked me later in person. Oh, this is our fearless leader, Ryan Lay. This is the second to last one, then I have one more, so we're getting there. But this is an example of a time that I went against everything I thought I should do to shoot a photo. So these are really embarrassing to show you guys. This is old, this is like, but these are the first attempts at shooting this trick. This is what it looked like. This is what my lighting looked like. Ryan's not embarrassing, he's about to do it right there. But this is like, for me, like I look at this now and I'm like, what was I even thinking? Why did I think lighting it like this would be cool? And I remember in the moment trying to shoot it and I was just like, this looks bad, I don't like it. Like, why can't I make it look good? I moved the flashes all around. So as a last ditch effort to be like, well, I don't know what the fuck to do, I put all the flashes behind him. So I lit him completely from the back, right? Like, which is kind of a no-no. You always want like one flash to light up the action. So I shot it, and the first frame we got, maybe it wasn't this one, but I just saw this like kind of silhouette, this like rim that happened on him, and the shadow, and I just was like, oh, that's actually way better. And it was just another good learning moment of like, sometimes with digital especially, like sometimes you gotta try the thing that's so far from what you think you should be doing, just go the other direction, and it won't always work, but in this case, it actually made the photo. And then this was like a cover of a Skateboard Mag photo annual, and it was Ryan's first cover, and it was just like really special for us to get. Ryan had like no sponsors at this time even, and we got a cover, which was amazing. And I attribute it to just running the other direction and putting flashes behind the skaters. So just, this is just the moral of the story, is try weird shit. You're shooting digital, you can literally take 1,000 photos, just keep trying. So someone?
Let's do over here so I don't have to.
Okay. Oh, so you don't have to walk? Yeah.
Hi, this has been fantastic. Really,
thank you.
Really fascinating. I have a question about your premise that that's the one. Recently, randomly read a Stanley Kubrick quote where he said everyone thinks he's like knows exactly what he wants, and that's why he shoots a million shots for every scene, but actually he has no idea what the fuck he wants. He's just like looking, like you said, he's looking for the right one. So I guess my question is, how much do you direct what you're shooting? And you've been answering with this, like, versus just go to the spot with the skaters and say like, let's see what inspires me.
Yeah, I think more often than not it's the latter one. It's like, let's just show up somewhere and see what happens. I'm really bad at planning, and I get like really anxious from planning, and you would have seen this last night if you saw me throwing up out of anxiety before I was going to do this today. So it's planning freaks me out, and like kind of trying to have a specific plan and being terrified it's going to go wrong or I'm going to deviate from it. So I really lean into like, let's just get to a spot with a skater. Let's just put the right people in the right places, and then we're all going to work together to figure out what looks cool. And I think the Kubricks of the world, like that's really terrifying though, to be like, I'm going to make a full-length feature film and we're just going to put people in the right place and see what the fuck happens. And like that is like, that's really terrifying, and you're spending millions of dollars. And I know people still work like that today. You know, they overshoot and they figure we'll get something good. This person's magical and this person's magical, and it's going to be cool. So I think it's like that's definitely how I operate, and it's kind of like saving. It's like laugh now, cry later, right? Like the planning is really stressful for me when I'm ahead of it, so I don't plan, and then I'm insanely stressed like in the moment or the night before. And it's almost like what's better, I don't know, but I think it always ends up working out better to like save the stress and just put it in the right place and like let it happen. And sometimes it doesn't happen, and that's okay. I think it's part of it too. Like you're at a spot with someone and you're trying something and you really want to make it work, and you're just kind of like, this is... As long as they're on the same page, like it sucks when you're over it and they're like, no, we can make it work, and you're just kind of like, I don't see it. Like it's not, but those are all tough conversations to have, and you kind of like just case by case, scenario. But yeah, this is we'll get to the last one here. Not this one. Sorry for putting in your bales, Ryan. So this photo is this will be on my tombstone, I think, when I die. So this is one of those things where I feel like I've talked about it a lot, but we'll talk about it again because it is interesting. And we were shooting at USC with a bunch of people skating over this can. If you know, like this can's been skated over probably 1,200,000 times. I don't know. It's like a million photos, a million clips over this can, and we're there with some of the best skaters in the world, and they're just rifling off tricks. And we already had like 6 photos or something, and I shot my close-up fisheye of Cater, and I shot like Beatrice, and like we're doing the different like all my angles, and I kind of used them all, and they're still just rifling off tricks. So at that point, it was just like, oh, let's see if this works. We'll put the camera in the garbage can. We pulled the bag out, put the camera in there, did a test shot while I was leaned in, and it was like, oh, that could be cool. Let's try it. And then the remote didn't work, so I was like, oh shit, well maybe we can't do this. And then, of course, this is the fun part of it. It's like, oh, how can we make it work? This is like, you get jockey at this point. Or I love to like be like, oh, I don't want to let this go. I want to make it work. How do we make it work? And of course, it was like, we can cut a hole. Not going to do that. Didn't have bolt cutters. Not above that, sadly, but we didn't have the right tools. And then my friend Casper, I was like, can you find me a stick? Because I'm also in the moment of shooting like like a shod skating at Louis skating at Cater, like trying not to miss anything, but also trying to make something interesting out of a boring spot. At this point, like a played out spot. And I was sick during this time too. It was like crazy. I was like running off, and I talk about throwing up a lot, but I was definitely puking in between shooting this photo and trying to make sure no one knew I was puking. It was like a total mess. But I was like, so Casper gets me the stick, and I realized it worked. And I'm like, oh shit, the stick works, let's give it a go. Put it in, he tried 2 from in there and fired off a sequence on both. So I had like, it's 8 frames a second. So your odds of that happening are still really low at 8 frames a second. Like if you have 30 frames a second, you'll definitely get that. But 8 is still like, that's not promised, right? And that was the one he made, and we looked at it and we were just like, holy shit. And it was kind of that moment of like, oh, something cool just happened here. Like I don't think we made something cool. I think something cool just happened and it worked out. And then to kind of show you an interest in this is on the closer cover, and it worked out cool because it kind of got the stick story got shared around. There's me with a stick, and maybe the stick will be on my tombstone actually. But yeah, that was it's a good stick now that I'm looking at it. I wish literally someone said as we were leaving, like, you should save the stick, and I was like, you're an idiot. Now I wish I saved the stick. And this is the raw shot, which I thought may be interesting for a comparison. So this is just what it looked like straight out of camera. You see me in there pushing the button with the stick. You can see more of the runway, or like the ledge he came off of, and the landing, which I kind of ended up cropping out for the sake of the photo, because in a perfect world, you're like, oh, the whole story is there, that's cool, but then you realize like, you don't even need the whole story, so fuck it. And I ended up cropping it black and white. I turned it, because I thought it was nicer like more, I don't know, just straight up and down like that. It kind of takes away the trick, because it looks more kick flippy than switch backside flippy. But I just thought it made the photo nicer, and I took that risk. Huge risk I took, no. There's me, POV, you're a camera in a trash can. And this guy And this guy who's sick is terrified that he's not going to be able to shoot a good photo right now. So it's me at my most vulnerable. But yeah, I think, and one other thing, history is interesting. Like, if history was different, Cater could have had the moment. This was Cater doing the nollie flip and just didn't quite get in the hole, If he was in the hole, it might have been Cater who got the photo and the cover and all that stuff. But it worked out for Louis. So it's also just to point out how much of this shit is chance. Like, when you're shooting 5 skaters trying to make something work, you're like, dude, I don't know what the fuck's going to happen. Let's just cross our fingers. So, yeah, that's kind of where we'll end the talk. And I don't have a moral of the story other than something I did learn about the stick moment was, because that clip, like, for me, got seen more than anything I've ever done. The video got shared around. Like, a friend sent it to me. He was like, you're on ESPN, and it was just like random places posted it. It was really cool, fun moment, but also tempting, because in modern media landscape, you have, like, you catch a little fire and you have a gimmick. You see it. If you ever look at TikTok, there's people who make 1,200 videos doing the same thing every day, because people like that. There's something. But as an artist or a person who wants to make interesting things, it's like kills you. The idea of leaning into a gimmick or doing the same thing every time. So a takeaway from this was like, yeah, I could shoot more photos with sticks for sure. I love this shit. I love like the MacGyver aspect of like figuring out how to do something with nothing, and I really enjoy it. But I'm also like, all right, I gotta be careful. You can't lean into your gimmicks too much. It's a balance, and you don't want to be the stick guy or whatever. So. That being said, if everyone wants to look under your chair right now, you have an official Matt Price Slow Impact photography stick. I'm not kidding. Look under your chairs right now. Everyone has a stick. There is a stick under all the chairs right now. And here's the thing. There's 4 sticks that are painted. If you got a painted stick, come up to Ryan or myself. You get a prize. 2 people are going to get a 11 by 14 print of the Louis photo. And 2 people will get some other prizes. But I wanted this to be like my Oprah moment where I'm like, you get a stick, you get a stick, you get a stick. But yeah, don't lean into your gimmicks, guys. Oh, will everyone hold their stick up? I think we need a photo. So yeah. In conclusion, don't be a gimmick, everybody. Thank you, I appreciate the time. And Ryan's gonna talk a little more, so don't leave yet.